What's going on, everybody? Aiden from Birds First Boys here, coming to you after the thrilling Eagles win over the Rams to advance to the NFC Championship, the 8th since the turn of the century. That was the most stressful playoff game that the Eagles have played since the divisional round against the Falcons in 2017. They mirrored each other, coming down to the end, needing one last stop from your defense deep in your own territory, and they got it. One of the most mentally tough Eagles wins that you will ever see, all things considered. It's snowing, your quarterback getting hurt in that snow. We don't know about his knee. They still were able to battle. The defense gassed at the end of that game. They're needing one stop to send you to the NFC Championship. At certain points, not being able to run the ball and then still getting back to it for the recreation of the LaShawn McCoy snowball run with Saquon. All of these things, they had to battle all of them. They are a truly mentally tough team, and you saw that today. You can have all of your takes on the national talk shows of why other teams are better than them. The Eagles are just simply not only physically tougher up front than teams, they are at times, and most times, mentally tougher than every opponent that they have. What a thrilling win. They needed every play. They needed every second. We are live on YouTube recapping it all. We'll get to your comments as they come in, but I truly cannot believe what we just witnessed. Going into today, we talked about the snow was a big storyline. It snowed about barely like an inch, and we thought, wait, is that it? Is that all we're going to have in this entire game? And then that was to be corrected very quickly. By about 4:30, it was coming down like no end. It was blowing sideways. You couldn't see anybody who's trying to drive home after that game. God bless. And it became clearly evident that you were going to you'd have benefits in the passing game because defenders really couldn't get on their heels in turn, but you also were throwing into a driving snowstorm, so it was very difficult from that point of view for quarterbacks. So it was apparent. We thought that it would favor the Eagles. I thought at times it didn't actually favor them because the offensive line was kind of on their heels in passing protection situations where it was easier for the defensive line to get traction. We saw that with Jared Verse. He seems like a really good guy with his comments this week. He was definitely not losing focus as the crowd taunted him whatsoever. He did play really well, though. But again, snow was a huge factor. The Eagles were about 13-10 into that game when the snow really, really hit. I liked what they did early. Everyone thought they were going to come out and establish Saquon Barkley. And last week, I thought that should be the move to establish Saquon Barkley. This week, I liked that they were throwing, trying to take shots, knowing what the forecast would be, knowing you had about a quarter and a half before that snow arrived. And you wouldn't be able to really take those downfield shots. So they tried early, and not just the deep shots. They were just throwing it early to get the defense off balance. That was a big storyline on the broadcast. Switching the safeties up instead of going too deep, having more guys into the box to stop Saquon Barkley. The Eagles countered that by going play action early, which was great. And then a counter action type of play where they faked it to Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts keeps it and takes the 40-yard run to the house for the touchdown. You're thinking, and as was I, we may blow these guys out of the water. And if Saquon then has a run later in that half, I like what they were doing early, using the pass to set up the run. And boy, oh boy, on that first Saquon run, it was 3rd and 3. Before he hit the line of scrimmage, you had your hand up knowing that was going to the house. Just the way it was blocked, the way it was schemed, the way the defense was set up, you knew he was gone. You knew it was going to be between him and the safety, and you knew the safety was going to lose that battle 11 out of fucking 10 times they have all year. And once again, I cannot stress it enough. Thank you to the Giants for being an incompetent organization that cannot do anything right and allowing us to have a player this special, over 200 total yards, 232 to be exact, and the 2 touchdowns. We'll get into the snow one later with Saquon. So I like what they did early. I like what the Rams did early. They were able to counter that. They were able to convert a lot of third downs, and they weren't third and shorts. It was a lot of 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Whether it's mixing Higbee in, they were. I thought that they did a really good job. I know the broadcast brought it up at the end. They got it to Puka Nacua a few times. Once Quinyon Mitchell got out of the game, you saw what they were doing. It didn't matter if it was DeMarcus Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, no matter who it was if Isaiah Rodgers was on them, they were targeting them. And I did think what the Rams did early was really, really good. So you're sitting there, it's 13-10, and it's starting to snow. It's the end of the half, and here's what I think one of the keys was. The Eagles didn't score there, and they left points on the board. 1, getting sacked and forcing them out of field goal range, and 2, obviously, the missed extra points from Jake Elliott. But The biggest thing I thought in that situation was the 3rd and 13 backed up to your goal line to convert that. They bring in Kenny Gainwell. He has some great runs there. He was getting 10 yards a clip via the pass and then had back-to-back great carries, great blocking on the outside. And it kind of puts you in that situation. Should have had 3 points there, but to hold on to the ball for the final 5 minutes of that half and get into the half up 13-10, I thought was crucial. And then the second half was absolute chaos. You couldn't see outside. It's snowing sideways. You could tell on the broadcast, and anybody who's here in Philadelphia, if you go outside right now, you can't see anything. It's dark. It's snowing sideways, and it's coming down pretty fast here. So it was just absolute chaos. You could see it. People didn't have traction. Guys were kind of losing their balance. We couldn't tell where the yard lines were. And that's when the Eagles defense stepped up the most. It is one of the most impressive performances, all things considered, that I have ever seen. Kudos to Jalen Carter. His punch out on Kyren Williams, which we called during this week. We said no matter the conditions, he got him once in the last game. He could get him here again. He's fumbled the ball 7 times this year already. This could be crucial. This could be how he gets him. And that flipped the game. That, and then Isaiah Rodgers, who's picked on most of the game, his return to the 10 to set the boys up when it's sitting there 16-15, and it felt like the game was at a weird balance where it was pretty clear that Jalen Hurts was not 100%. He was not fully mobile, and it felt like they couldn't move the ball, and it felt like the momentum was shifting to the Rams after that safety at 16-15. They go down, and they should have had a touchdown there on that tush push. I thought Saquon Barkley was in. He's not in. They try the tush push. It's a false start. All of that is really brutal, but to flip that from the defense, and boy, did they flip momentum seemingly every drive in the late 3rd to 4th quarter. They flip it there with the punch out by Jalen Carter, the return by Isaiah Rodgers to put them into field goal range, which felt about 20 yards. Like when you go to a college game and they pull a kid out of the crowd and he can kick an extra point for the chance at his semester's tuition. That's what it felt like watching Jake Elliott today, that it was just like a kid that they pulled out of the crowd to see if he can nail a 30-yard extra point. And they did so, and I will give him credit. He did miss those extra points, but those were tough field goals. There were great holds by Braden Mann as well. I thought one was to the side and he snagged it, put it in down for Jake Elliott, which was really key so that they could stay in rhythm when they needed it most, because they didn't have a lot of distance on those kicks. Everyone using their hands because they can't use towels to wipe off the snow. All of these little things that mattered and ended up adding up for the Eagles in the end. So that was one of the plays. And then also Jalen Carter's running mate at Georgia. The Georgia boys have once again stepped up. Thank you to Howie Roseman for abiding by common sense, which we have talked about for years, and about why that matters in drafting. Nolan Smith gets the strip sack again. He is fully blooming into a reliable defensive end starter. It looks like he's the heir apparent to Brandon Graham. It's a beautiful thing to see. He gets the strip sack, and who is there aside from Zach Bond, who at one point had a drive by himself that was key, that he was just everywhere around the ball. He had a tackle for a loss. He had, he recovered that fumble. He had the deflection on the pass. Like, he just seemingly was everywhere on that drive. And it seems like when things going and things get tough for the Eagles, he steps up and make those plays. They didn't have that from the linebacker position a year ago. They've clearly had it this year. I thought Owen Burks had multiple big moments for this team, including a few tackles for loss where he just shot the gap and met the running back in the backfield to force a tackle for loss. In short yardage situations, they once again excelled up front, and Owen Burke was a huge part of that. But back to Bond, who is clearly a first-team All-Pro for that one. You're able to take over a drive from the linebacker position is truly just a rare occurrence to see, and he was amazing. And that flipped it as well. So you had those 2 turnovers, and it was back-to-back, and all of a sudden you're up 22-15. They get yet another stop on defense, and boy, did they need it. Quinyon goes out early. Nakobe Dean is obviously out for the season. Isaiah Rodgers would later get hurt later in one of those drives. So they were down some bodies, and they were really battling. They had a few shots at interceptions that would have been even more backbreaking to the Rams that they could have had. They get that stop there, and then there's the moment. In college, they call it the Heisman moment. And all week, everybody in Philadelphia has been waiting on this. We knew it had potential for Snow Bowl Part 2. And we knew Saquon Barkley is the best running back that we've had since LeSean McCoy. And we knew what LeSean McCoy did in the original Snow Bowl. And that iconic run he has leaping and galloping through the snow on the way to breaking it for the touchdown that would seal the win for the Eagles. And you're thinking to yourself, all right, about 5 minutes left. Saquon has the ball. Does he rip this one and have Snowball Part 2, his legendary run, just like LeSean McCoy? And doesn't he pull it off? Finally, they were able to bounce it outside, which we were calling for. We were hoping that maybe he'll do that because they were stuffing him inside. He bounces it outside, and again, it's one-on-one with a safety. See ya, to the house. The Eagles are up 2 scores. Unbelievable. It was incredible work by him, incredible work by the offensive line, and it was just the moment that you're hoping and waiting for all week. It is a moment, no matter what happens for the rest of the season. They could win the Super Bowl. They could lose 38-0. We will remember that moment like we remember the original Snowball moment. It was that cool. It was that iconic. Seeing him take off once in fully green grass and once in the snow was absolutely fantastic. Great to see. A moment that he's waited for himself 7 years. And you could tell that his emotion on the sideline after scoring those touchdowns, after they won the game and got that 4th down stop. It was incredible. And I'm very, very happy for him. Seemingly one of the better guys in the league, one of the most well-liked people in the league, somebody who was written off in New York, labeled as injury prone, and he was banged up in this game, and he came back and was doing a lot of heavy lifting after Jalen Hurts hurt his knee on that safety, and we'll check on that, but he deserved that moment, and he finally got it. Snowball Part 2, one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. And then you're up 28-15 because Jake Elliott misses another extra point. He could hit the field goals and not the extra point. Doesn't make a ton of sense there, but it did happen. And the broadcast and people seemingly think in this day and age of football with 4 minutes left, down 2 touchdowns, that the game is over. But earlier in the broadcast, they were talking about how football has changed and going forward on 4th down is just common practice and how it's more exciting and it's more thrilling. So why are we calling games at 4 minutes left on the broadcast? Don't love it. Very annoying to see. Chris Collinsworth, man, if we would have just got Puka Nacua going earlier. They just couldn't get him involved earlier. Now they are, but it's too late. And hurry up offense. Maybe they should have went to this earlier, but it's too late. It's not too late. They're perfectly in this. They had 3 timeouts. They had the 2-minute warning. I don't know why we're acting like the game's over with 4 minutes left, and knowing that if they scored 2 touchdowns, they would win the game after the Eagles had missed 2 extra points there. So they had a real legitimate chance. They get down the field in a hurry. It was clear that our defense was gassed. Then the teams go 3 and out on offense to give the ball right back to the Rams. And I'll say this, I didn't hate the call of play action on 2nd down. It's something they've done in the past. We saw it. It's actually ironically how they lost in week 2 against the Falcons. That time it was a little bit cleaner. They did get the ball to Saquon. He did drop it, but I didn't hate the play action. I think a lot of people are critical of that, to not just hand it off to Saquon Barkley 3 times. I think you're playing the predictability of the situation and thinking that they would be all in on Saquon and you have a clear rollout. It did look like he had Devontae Smith on that play, but he just didn't have time. The defensive end read that really well. So that's brutal. And then you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, this could be it. This could be the moment, and not in a good way. They're flashing the stat 51. Comeback, go ahead, 4th quarter, touchdown, wins or ties by Matthew Stafford. 51 is a big number of comeback touchdowns. I'll tell you what. So that was crazy, and it's in the back of your head. Everything about it is in the back of your head, and you're like, oh no. And plus, you've seen it before earlier this year against the Falcons game that I mentioned earlier, and you're just thinking, oh no, like this is the moment, and it's the moment that's soul-crushing. It's back-breaking. They get down the field pretty quickly. Cooper DeJean, my exciting white, my little bro, I thought he had that one. It was easier to catch that interception than it was to catch a punt today. He drops it, and that's back-breaking. You're like, oh, that game's over. Slay. He played phenomenally. He was so good today. But the catch by Puka Nacua over him, you're thinking, oh, my God, they're down to the 25 already. What are we going to do? They're on the cusp of the 10-yard line there. It's 2nd and 6. You're thinking to yourself, oh, my God. Like, you're looking at the time saying, will there be time for us? Will there be time for us? And then the X Factor arrived. Jalen Carter gets the sack on 3rd down to force it into a 4th and 11. They were out of timeout, so the clock was running, rushing back to the line. And then he gets there again on 4th down to force the errant throw. Game over. Game clincher by Jalen Carter. It's why you drafted him. It's why he's on this team, to have that X factor. When he was drafted, it is ironic because they said he could be the future Aaron Donald of this league, the best interior defensive lineman in this league. Playing against Aaron Donald's former team, you saw why, and you saw it in the crux of the game. It was one of the coolest things and one of the defining moments of his early career to get that sack and force that pressure on fourth down. He was awesome, and he won the Eagles that game when it mattered the most. That's the difference between this Eagles team this year and the Eagles team last year. They stepped up when it mattered the most. They were mentally tough when it mattered the most. They were gassed in that situation. Gassed. And they were able to finally get some pressure, good in coverage, game over, onto the NFC Championship. Phenomenal work. It took 10 years off of my life, but I will not complain. That is in the belly of the beast sometimes, as Packers fans who want to go viral would say, and that matters. I think for anybody who is there, it's going to be a special game. For anybody who watched, that was going to be a special game, and it is. We are on to our 8th NFC Championship in my lifetime against the Commanders. This will be an interesting matchup for a variety of reasons. It feels like every time we've played the Commanders in recent years, they've had a sort of devil magic with them. They've had devil magic all year. Jayden Daniels is a budding star and one of the faces of the league so far this year. The last time the Eagles, and I want to make this entirely clear because there were a lot of people picking the Rams this week. The Eagles have lost one game since September, and it came against the Commanders after Jalen Hurts went out of the game, after Nakobe Dean went out of the game, after Josh Sweat went out of the game, after C.J. Gardner-Johnson was ejected from the game. So they've lost one game since September, and it came against this Commanders team that we're going to face. And hey, congrats to Josh Harris. You finally made it out of the second round. You're on to the championship round. Wish it would have been for the Sixers team that you forgot about, that you owned, but I know you're glad with your pet project, little Commanders now, so that's a storyline as well. Can't wait to see Josh Harris in the box next week in Philadelphia, even though he owns the Sixers. Storylines galore with this NFC Championship. Wow, what a battle. I thought that was an incredible job. Again, it is the mental toughness of this team that they have answered every step of the way, all the way back to September. Like I just mentioned, that was the last time they truly lost, and they were in Tampa, and they were 2-2. They had a lot of injuries. They got killed that day. And you said to yourself, if they could just get out of the bye week healthy, and then we'll see what this team is. And since then, they have put on some shows. And even along the way, there's been moments where you say to yourself, ooh, like I wish they would have been a little bit more crisp in that Browns game. I wish they'd have been more crisp in that Panthers game. But they seem to always meet the moment. They met it today, and they are on to the next round. I thought it was beautiful work. And just shout out, if we're doing helmet stickers like they did on the college football show we all loved growing up, Jalen Carter for sure. Darius Slay, who, at certain points this year, I think his knee was really bothering him because he didn't look himself. He looked himself these past 2 weeks with that interception and with his coverage skills today, which they needed because they were obviously trying to target the other side once Quinyon Mitchell went out of the game. So helmet stickers to both of those guys. And then on offense as well, I would say Saquon Barkley, again, phenomenal job. Every time, I can't believe we have him. And then to the special teams unit, they did miss those 2 extra points, but man, oh man, I know how tough it was, and every single point mattered in this game. It almost backfired on us because you left 2 points on the board, but to hit those field goals when you needed it most, and when your quarterback was looking a little iffy, it wasn't looking like he was solid enough to really run the offense and facilitate it the way that we usually see him do it. You guys put the points on the board when we needed to. It's all 3 phases of the game. We've seen it back-to-back weeks now. The special teams forced a turnover to start the game. The offense was able to score, and the defense shut them down from there. Today, the defense forced turnovers when they needed the most. They got pressure when they needed the most. The offense was able to get scoring early. They were able to run the ball effectively late in the snow, and they were able to, in the special teams game, kick field goals in a driving blizzard. It is all 3 phases, and it is a mentally tough group. We are on to the NFC Championship. We'll be back with our full show this week. I appreciate everybody. Congrats to everybody who's at that game. Looks like a phenomenal time. One to remember forever. Snowball Part 2 in the books. The Eagles are 2 for 2 in the snowballs. Amazing. We'll talk to you guys soon.